Hello everyone, Alexa Dunn here, and today I am talking about money. Guys, I have been waiting to make this video, some primo publishing real talk coming your way. See, no one in publishing talks about money, and I honestly wish that more people would. I think that the more that we know about the realities of how to actually make money off of writing as a career, the more equipped we are to throw ourselves headlong into this crazy business and set realistic expectations for ourselves, because really, don't go into writing and don't go into books for the money. You're not going to get rich off of books unless you are super duper special unicorn, which I will talk all about in subsequent videos. I'm going to talk about who is able to quit their day job and write full time. But this is your broad overview of how money works in traditional publishing. I'm going to talk about how you actually get paid, what those payments look like. I'm going to break your heart and tell you all about taxes, which are the worst. And I'm just going to give you a very broad overview of money in traditional publishing. So let's start with how authors get paid. So authors get paid through advances, royalties, and subrights. Subrights also deal with advances and royalties, but those are basically the three core areas where you're going to be having revenue streams come in through traditional publishing. An advance comes from your publisher. They have a complex calculation of how much your book is worth to them, and they weigh it against how much they might make off of your book. And so they pay it to you in a series of payments, but essentially you're getting this amount in a lump sum, not literally. And then if your advance earns out, so that means your publisher makes back the money that they paid you in your advance, only then do you get royalties. And royalties, of course, are a percentage of each sale on a book that you would be paid. Royalties are typically paid out by your publisher every 6 months, but as with everything, publishing is slow, it is often behind, and I've heard royalty payments and any payments from publishers that, well, it gets paid when it gets paid, but that is what we have agents for. That's a whole other story. And then subrights. Your subrights are going to be primarily audio, film, TV, and then foreign sales. So that is when your agent or your publisher is selling your book abroad in foreign markets. You will often get similar payment structures from foreign markets, but I've also heard that you do sometimes get lump sum payments for your foreign subrights, and that generally foreign rights are just nowhere near as big as what you're going to get for your primary book deal. I'd like to caution everyone from getting too excited, because the reality in publishing is that most authors do not earn out their advance. So the advance money that you get from your publisher will sometimes and often be the only money that you see for your book. If your book earns out and you start earning royalties, you can feel pretty good about yourself. Either your advance was low enough that it was easier to earn out and get your royalties, or you're just selling like hotcakes. Earning out is great, earning royalties is great, but you should always approach traditional publishing and your book deals on the concept and idea that you are never going to earn out. Take your advance money and think of it as the only money that you get. And if you earn out and get royalties, you will simply be pleasantly surprised. So what is the average advance that you are going to get for your book? I've heard a lot of numbers kind of tossed around, but I'm going to give you kind of the evergreen one that I've heard pretty consistently over the last few years. And I hope you're sitting down. If you're not sitting down, please sit down right now, because I'm going to tell it to you, and you might fall out of your chair. The average advance is $1,000 to $10,000, $1K to $10K. That is it. It's not a lot of money. It's definitely not quit your day job money. And that's just the average across publishers and genres. Of course, an average is an average, so you're going to see a lot of variation in advances. But that is to warn you that six-figure advances, those things that you hear about, are really not normal. They are not the norm. And I will tell you anecdotally, Obviously, my genre of expertise is young adult fiction with a little bit of knowledge of middle grade because I have friends who write both. But I've noticed that advances seem to have kind of gone down. I compare the advances that friends of mine got when they sold in 2015 to my advance to advances of other friends now in 2017. They're lower on average. Lower being a relative term, but in general, I've noticed that advances seem to be going down. So I would wager that 1K to 10K average advance is pretty on the nose. Why is this? I think that publishing, especially kidlit, I think it's become saturated, and I think that we have seen a lot of situations where a book sold for a ton of money and then just wasn't a commercial success. The books didn't sell, and so publishers are taking fewer and fewer risks on big advances up front. They're doing smaller advances, even if it means they gotta pay royalties later, but since most authors don't earn out, it's kind of a good gamble on the publisher's part. Advances really vary widely depending on your genre, as well as the publisher and the imprint. Generally speaking, across the board, if you have a really commercial concept, so that's high concept, something that could potentially sell a lot, you are just more likely to get a larger advance for that book. If you have something that's quieter or niche, you're looking at a lower or smaller advance. That is not always a bad thing. If you watch my marketing video, I mentioned that not every book is a big splashy commercial book that warrants a huge marketing budget. Some books are quieter and they are niche, and they can do incredibly well and sell incredibly well relative to the advance that is paid for them, the marketing that is put into them, and the potential audience. So you really don't want a massive advance for a quiet or a niche book because you're more likely to be seen by your publisher as a failure if you don't sell well. Remember, everything is relative. You don't always want a massive advance because you have far further to fall. That said, you don't want to have your work undervalued. So, it's always a conversation to have with your agent about what is a good number for your work. Again, this is why it is really important to find the right agent, a really good fit, and someone who just knows the business. You want to have someone who knows what is a reasonable advance for your genre, for the time, for the market, for the potential sale, so that you don't get underbid or overbid. If a publisher throws an ungodly amount of money at you, they could be setting you up for failure. But again, this is really, really nuanced. There are pros and cons to both low and high advances, because remember what I said, most advances do not earn out. So if you're not going to earn out anyway, wouldn't you rather have a 50K advance rather than a 10K advance if it doesn't make a huge difference in terms of impacting your future career? That's always something to think about. Conversely, maybe you want to take the money and run. Maybe you are okay with a $500,000 advance, even if it means that there's a chance that it will be more difficult to sell books in the future. You got your $500,000 and you're laughing all the way to the bank. It's going to vary for each person and each situation, but generally I hope and aim for a sweet spot for all people. You want to get a good advance that speaks well to your book and its commercial potential and is, kind of respecting your talent and the work that you put into the book, but not so much that you're going to fall flat on your face. I mentioned that advances vary also by publisher and imprint, and I just want to touch on this a little bit more. Big publishers often can afford bigger advances. It's kind of obvious and self-explanatory. So you always have to consider the advance and what the advance is worth or what it says relative to the publisher and the imprint. You may be getting an advance, a smaller advance, what seems like a smaller advance from a smaller publisher or imprint. But if they have a small and selective list and they really believe in you as a title, though the advance money may be lower, you may still be a lead title and get all of their marketing support and sell really, really well. So a small advance is not always a bad thing. Also worth noting that what is a low advance at one imprint might be a high advance at another. Always consider the context. But now I come to the really bad news about publishing money. Regardless of the size of your advance, you're not getting it all at once. Book money, book advances, are paid on a schedule. That schedule is going to vary depending on how many books are in your deal, as well as what your agent has negotiated. But I'm going to give you an example of a 2-book deal that would be paid in 5 installments. Payment number 1 would be upon signing, delivery, and acceptance of your contract. You're going to get, in this scenario, 1/3 of the money in this payment. Getting that payment can take anywhere from 3 months from your deal to 6 months to a year. This money doesn't appear magically. Contracts can take time, and even once you turn in your contract, then your publisher has to pay your agent on time, and then your agent gets the money to you. Your next payment, your next 4 payments, are all going to be dependent on the books, the 2 books that you have to turn in. You're going to be paid upon delivery and acceptance of manuscript number 1. Now that is after you do all your edits with your editor. So that could be your developmental edits, or your line edits, or your copy edits. Publishers have a different rule for when a manuscript is accepted. I will tell you that my publisher considered it delivered and accepted after line edits, but before copy edits. I don't know how it works at every publisher, but that is how it worked for me. The next time you're going to get paid is when your book is published. So remember, publishing schedules are really, really long. So if you sell a book and it's not coming out for 2 years, so you see that first payment, that 3rd chunk, when you do your contract, the next one you turn in your book and it's acceptable, and that's probably going to be 9 months to a year before your book comes out. But then you're not getting the next payment until your book comes out. Same thing for book 2, rinse and repeat. You're going to get a payment when you deliver book 2 and it is accepted by your publisher. So that's after you write it, that's after you do a bunch of editing on it, and then you're going to get paid your final payment when it is published. So that first payment is about 1/3 of your advance. Then the next payment is a 1/6, a 1/6, a 1/6, a 1/6. There's all sorts of math you can do on this to break this down to how much money is actually coming to you. And I do have a spreadsheet and a formula, and there's going to be a future video where I'm going to just do some magic on the screen, and I'm going to show you this spreadsheet and these formulas, and I'm going to break down a variety of advances so you can see what the money actually is. Because it's never what is actually signed on the bottom line, because you give 15% to your agent, and your agent does earn that 15%, by the way. Also in part because they're managing your money. You are also then going to have to set aside a massive chunk of your advance for taxes. I can only speak to US taxes, but I can tell you that they suck and they're brutal. I actually haven't paid them yet. I'm just bracing myself for impact. I would estimate on the high end for your taxes. I have estimated in my spreadsheet at 40%, because this income is taxed as freelance income, like contractor income, and Uncle Sam likes to take a nice chunk of that. So take whatever your advances are, subtract 15%, and then 40%. So at the end of the day, you're going to have a little more than half of your advance in your bank account, but it's going to take 2 to 3 years for that money to come into your bank account. So ultimately, and I will show this to you when I do that breaking down a book deal video, I'm definitely going to be breaking down some 6-figure advances, because 6-figure advances are not as much money as you think they are. After the agent fee and the taxes and the installments paid over a number of years, very rarely is book money money that you can live off, because it just doesn't come consistently. And a deal might sound really fancy. Let's say you get a $60K book deal. Yeah, but that's a little more than half of that after taxes and fees that you get over 2 to 3 years. That's nice if you have a job, and it's nothing to sneeze at. That's a very good advance, by the way. But it isn't quit your job money, is the point that I'm trying to make. Taxes are rough, guys. They're rough, and it's not fair. I'd also like to make a quick note that if you don't turn in your book on time or in a satisfactory manner, or if you don't deliver your book at all, you don't get the rest of your money. Your publisher can take your money away from you. In fact, if you F up on that book that you got that upon signing advance for, they'll take your money back. So nothing is guaranteed. Your advance is an advance against delivery of publishable books. So generally, I recommend when you get that sweet advance that you set aside 30 to 40% of it for taxes. Now, it is going to come to you less your agent's commission. They will subtract that for you and then transfer the money to your bank account. That's the thing about having an agency. They manage your money. You'll get a 1099 at the end of the year so that you can file your taxes, etc. I also recommend setting aside 10 to 15% of your advance after the taxes, etc. for marketing. I have a whole video about that and why you need a rainy day fund just in case you need to do some of your own marketing and promotion. I also say treat yourself a little. It's exciting, and especially if you do have a steady, regular income, that book money is some bonus money, and you have been working for years for free, pouring yourself into this book, so treat yourself. I'll tell you, I've bought a lot of makeup, if you haven't noticed. Sephora and I are friends now in a way that we could never be friends before, and it's been nice to just be like, I want that Harry Potter eyeshadow palette, which is on right now. Treat yourself a little. And as I mentioned as a final thought, most authors cannot live off of book money. The amounts just aren't high enough, the taxes are real, and the payments come over a very long schedule. It's just not money that you can live off if you live in an expensive area or you live by yourself, etc. I am going to do a whole video on that, as I mentioned, about who can quit their job? In what situations can you be a full-time writer? I hope I have whet your appetite. This is going to be a series of videos on publishing money. Got some more things up my sleeve. So this September is Money Month, and I look forward to dishing some more publishing real talk about money. So I hope y'all are still okay. This is very, very depressing. I recommend that you soothe yourself with the item of your choice, whether that be wine or ice cream or Doritos, I don't know, or, watch some television. This is hard stuff, guys. Publishing money is brutal, but that is it in a nutshell. I hope this was illuminating. I have to say, when I learned these things many years ago, I was like, oh, it was awful, guys. It was so depressing. And the good thing is, if you're learning this earlier in the process, you have time to process and prepare and throw yourself into the love of writing books. We should be paid for our art. It is important to be paid for your art, but novel writing is a long game, and it's a weird game, and there's all sorts of luck and things involved in it. You can't bank on anything. So love the writing, get a good agent, get paid for your work, but don't quit your day job. Hit me up with questions down in the comments. I feel like you have to have questions about this one. I breezed through some of this money stuff, and money is complicated, guys. And let me know any suggestions for other topics that you want to hear, specific things about money that you want me to talk about. I'm going to be filming these videos all month and posting them throughout the month of September. If you liked this, please subscribe for more publishing real talk and turn on that notification bell so that you are notified whenever I post a video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and happy writing.